Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Pulpit. My name is Jamie Dew, and I'm the president of New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary and Level College. And always excited to think that you folks are watching or listening, however you go about listening or viewing podcasts. But always excited that you're willing to do that, and hope that these podcasts are encouraging to you just in your life and ministry. Again, Beyond the Pulpit is the life of the ministry. It's all things related to ministry leadership and what that looks like, which is the pulpit, but a lot of times it's so much more. And those are the things we talk about on this podcast, just to try to keep you encouraged, because that's what this is really about. It's not about my viewpoint per se. It's not about my opinion or perspective. And I'm not trying to shape the way everybody out there ought to think about things, but it's about us just together trying to be faithful to Jesus. And so we're trying to encourage you along the way with that. Well, we did a podcast in the last episode on marriage and ministry, and we still have to talk about raising children in ministry. So I'll just kind of put a little bit of teaser out there. My wife and I get asked all the time to come to churches to talk about this and speak about this and our opinions about this. And so stay tuned. We are absolutely going to get there and talk about that head on, those types of things. But before you can talk about raising your children in ministry, you really have to be solid in your marriage in ministry. And so we did a podcast the last time in, I guess, part one of this. And we got done with that podcast, and we looked at each other, we're like, there's just so much more to talk about. So part two is where we're at right now. And I've got my wife, Tara Dew, here with me in the studio. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for taking some time out of your morning to come and be here with me. It was cool listening to you talk about all the things, sharing your story in the last podcast where, you're talking about when you came to faith. I still think that's the coolest thing in the world, that you came to faith at a Billy Graham crusade. Was it Fort Lauderdale? Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Fort Lauderdale with your grandmother, who's 50 years older than you. That's pretty cool. But I know her. I knew Gigi. She was great. And so it was just neat to hear you talking about those things. Thanks for coming back. We do have a couple other things we need to talk about for a few moments here. Yep. So just to kind of give a lay of the land, what we're going to cover here in this podcast, we need to talk about our vows. Mm-hmm. We need to talk about setting goals. This kind of builds on the alignment stuff we talked about in the last one. Talk about communication, and then a variety of things about how husbands and wives need to just kind of encourage and not get on each other's nerves type things. Mm-hmm. We have already talked about picking the right spouse, alignment, healthy rhythms and habits, and intimacy is what we talked about last time. So we won't necessarily cover those again. All right, let's talk about vows. Mm-hmm. Far too often couples put thought into vows only prior to marriage and then the marriage. And then now we've got this thing where people just write their own vows, which often they say absolutely nothing to each other of importance. And let's talk about vows. What types of things do we say to each other in vows? And what does it mean to make a vow? Mm-hmm. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, words are important. And when you stand before God and that preacher and all those witnesses and you say words to your spouse, you are entering into a covenant relationship where you are vowing, you are promising that you are going to be and do certain things.
Right.
And it's crazy because these are some of the most important words that you have ever said. But so often with the emotions and the nerves, you don't actually even remember what those words are.
And even in the moment, you don't pay attention to the actual vow part of it.
Because you're just repeating after the preacher.
Right.
So I think we were probably 10 to 15 years into marriage when we were just really convicted that we had made these promises to each other, and yet
we forgot them.
We forget. So we decided that we were going to print out our vows.
We went back and got the VHS.
Yes, we did.
You see, boys and girls, back in those days, there were these things called VCRs, and they had these tapes. When you hear rolling the tape, there was literally tape in this thing. And so we had a VHS.
Yep.
We went out, we found a VCR we could watch, and we had to play it so that we could actually hear the vows we made, and we typed them out.
That's right. Now, ours were the very traditional.
Yes.
I, Tara, take you, Jamie, to be my lawful wedded husband. So
Yes.
ours were the very traditional ones, but we wanted to
have
make
that whole-
sure that we wrote it down exactly as we said it.
Right.
And now we have those displayed, one in our bedroom
Yep.
and one in our bathroom, where we
It's
get
an appropriate place to remember your vows. The bathroom.
it's right beside the towels,
It
which
is,
is something
not the
that you
toilet.
get every day. That's right, after a shower. And you have them there because I read them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm remembering what I committed to you. And I think that in 25 years, we can look back and see, you know what? There have been times that we've held on to each other
Right.
in better and in worse, in
Right.
times where we have been richer and in times where we have been poor,
Yes.
in times where you've had good health or bad health.
That's right.
And I think that vows are important to constantly be remembering and realigning, because our human natural disposition is one to think about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But in those vows, you are committing to really consider and think about and serve the other person.
That's right.
And it's not about you and how you feel or and so those vows that I made to you were how I was going to love you
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for couples to remember the words that you've spoken to each other and to strive to live them.
Right.
Because if I am living them out and serving you, and you are living them out and serving me, well, then that affects a lot of things.
It's I think about vows in various layers. And one that it's those words from a philosophical standpoint. It's actually words that made us husband and wife, right? It wasn't the rings. It wasn't the kiss. It was words. Words are the things that brought creation into existence, right? We often I say that because we often think that words are just these sounds we make and, they convey meaning and stuff like that, but they don't do things. But when we think about words in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it is the spoken word that brought creation into existence. It is words that I speak that confer degrees on people when they graduate. It's not me handing them the degree. It's when I say the words, by the authority vested in me, I confer upon you that degree. It's words that made us husband and wife. And, it is kind of a tragedy that we often think so very little of these words that we speak. They are a sentimental part of a ceremony for far too many. I know I made a kind of comment a minute ago where it made it sound like I was being dismissive of people that write their own vows. Let me be clear. Yes, I am. Because it's frustrating when people just use this as a sentimental expression to say what sounds like beautiful things, but they're not actually making a commitment to each other. It's the words that make us husband and wife. It's me and you saying, I, Jamie, take you, Tara. I, Tara, take you, Jamie. And the pastor saying, by the authority vested in me, by God and the state of whoever ordained them, I announce you man and wife. That's what makes us man and wife. And it is also words, and this is why we keep them on. I mean, mine in the bedroom, it's on my nightstand. It's the last thing. I put my phone to charge when I'm getting in bed, and I see those vows, and I remember what I committed to you that I would do. And so it is these words and the remembering of those words that, when we said earlier in the last podcast, good marriages are not fallen into by luck. They are built. And the way you the hammers and the nails that do the building are these words that we express to each other in vows. So look, I just say this out there to those of you who are getting married. Look, if you're going to write your own vows, say something. Say something real. Express real commitments. This is not a time to be poetic and say pretty things. It's just time to make concrete commitments that are ultimately going to govern and guide everything you do in your marriage from that point forward. And then second of all, I'd say this to you if you're about to get married, but also all of you who have already gotten married, do what Tara and I did. Go dig them up. Go find your VHS. Go write them down. Post them in your house. A very powerful moment in our recent life in marriage. back in December, I blew my knee up and blew the meniscus, got a big blood clot in my leg and ended up in the hospital, and my bowel shut down, and it was nasty and it was bad. And I was in ICU for 7 days over Christmas. And the recovery from that was a month and a half, 2 months. It was brutal. It was way more than I bargained for. It was scary. I was utterly helpless. And you sat there by my side and cared for me and carried me. And it was you living out, I, Tara, take you, Jamie, in sickness and in health, for better or worse. These were the worst moments. These were the sickness moments. And you've had to do that for me twice now, once in 2017, once here in 2025. And I say that to all you folks out there because there was a powerful moment about 3-4 weeks into that journey where I was still very much dependent on you. I could do nothing. And the kids we have family prayer times. We're going to talk about these types of things here in a little bit. We have family prayer times every night. We'll talk about in those podcasts. And we prayed our prayers that night together as a family. And they were all standing by my side of the bed right next to those vows. And I was able, as a teaching moment with our children, to say, children, I'm not trying to be emotional here, but I want to teach you for something. Look at those vows. And what you've gotten to see over the last month is your mother living that out for me and to me as consistent. But so all this to say, these vows have got to be more than just beautiful words and some ceremony in the past. That is the bedrock of our commitments. And so remember those things, dig them up, find them, print them, do whatever you got to do to remember these things because they are vitally important.
That's right.
Talk about goal setting. We as a family sit and talk and do goals and things like that. So how does that work in our marriage?
It's really fun. We decided that on New Year's Eve, we're going to look back on God's faithfulness to us in the past year and then look forward to the year ahead. And it's fun because we do that as a married couple and see how God has been faithful to us in our personal walks, in our marriage, in our ministry. But then now to bring the kids on to it too and let them even begin to see, okay, this is how God was faithful to me in this past year. And here's what I'm looking forward to. And so different couples do it different ways. Some do it once a month. Some do it every 3 months. For our family, we've just found that it
just takes me longer to accomplish the goals, so we need to do it once a year.
But you can just kind of look forward to, okay, these are some things that I want. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution, but more than that, it's really just, here's how God's been faithful last year, and here's some things that we're excited about and expectant about. And we kind of make the goals in a couple areas. We think about physically, what are some goals? Maybe that could be you want to work out, you want to eat healthier, you want to move your body more, you want to have a certain number of steps every day. You think about mentally, what do you want to do? For us, for many years, it was finishing those classes or that degree. For our kids, it's I just finished 9th grade or 10th grade, or I'm graduating from high school and going to college. So you think about physical goals, mental goals, emotional goals. What are some things that you want to do with friends or with people that you love, and then even socially and spiritually too. What are some ways that you want to grow with God this year? And so we can kind of do those individually. We can do those as a family, as a marriage unit. But I think it's important to look back and see how God provided, how God was with you, how God helped you in the past, and that helps you think about the future. And so no matter when you do it with your spouse, I think it's just really important to have those check-in times where you're looking back and you're looking ahead.
Right. And this does kind of piggyback on what we talked about in the last podcast with alignment. There are these moments, these seasons where we check in with each other. But we do, as a family, we have that in January, typically right at New
Year's,
and that's a powerful moment. It's healthy and it's good to, it's been interesting to look back each year and remember things that you'll pull out the list and start going through things last year, a year ago at that time we were praying would happen in that year. And it's so cool to see we were praying this would happen last year, and now look at it. The Lord has done all of those things.
That's right.
And that's a very powerful teaching thing for children.
That's right.
So anyway, we'll talk about children in another one. let's talk about communication. I said this in the last podcast. Everything we talked about then and even now is riding on and assuming the ability to communicate. Let me add sort of a twist to that, or an extra layer to that. Talk about how important communication has been between the two of us as, well, what we have in common. You said this last time, two very hard-headed people, but also two very different people.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are about as different from each other as we could possibly be.
Right.
What was it, the Enneagram thing? We never really took it, but we kind of got hints about what we would be, and it says these two people should never marry.
Right.
And we looked at each other and was like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because, very strong-willed, both of us. Mm-hmm. And so the only fix has been sitting and talking and hammering out. I'm so glad we have, and praise the Lord for what he's done there. And
there's times where you're communicating and it's all about good things, right? But there's also, we said early on, we don't fight, we have a lot of discussions, right? But I think that one thing that we have done well is that sometimes when you're in the middle of a heated fight, discussion, emotions run really high. And sometimes we've learned about each other. I am one who wants to talk it out until it's totally fixed. You're one that kind of needs to table it, cool down,
chill out,
come back to it.
Stop.
And one thing that we've learned is it was important for me to know that we were going to talk about it. But for you, it was important that we just stopped at that moment and came back to it. And so we call them marriage autopsies, which is kind of a terrible word for it. But what we mean by that...
An argument autopsy.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that after the fact, when we've both cooled off, calmed down, can see and think a little bit clearer, we kind of come back and go, okay, what really was that argument about?
Right.
Because so often, it's really not about whatever the issue is you're fighting about. There's an underlying thing where one person doesn't feel valued, or one person doesn't feel listened to, or one person doesn't feel thought of. Selfishness, pride comes down to the bottom of it all. So I think coming back later, sometimes when emotions are a little bit less high and heated, we're able to then, okay, what really was going on? And I'm able to reassure you of things, you're able to reassure me, and we can figure out, okay, where did this argument get off the rails?
And that's important, because what it's done for you and me is it's allowed us to almost have some little shortcuts, some little cheat codes, if you will, on an argument that could have otherwise early in our marriage brewed into something much bigger than it needed to. Seeing that it can go there, I've learned, here's what she wants. And just be able to say before it brews into that, baby, I know what's important to you. Let me address that. Here's what I'd say to you. I promise you I'm going to deal with this issue. I promise you I see this concern. And you vice versa back to me.
That's right.
And it allows us to sort of cut off some of those things.
And so I think it's important to talk to your spouse. Talk before it brews that big. Or if it is getting more heated, take a step back and come back and talk.
Right.
But it's really important for me as your wife to be able to reassure you that we're not enemies. We both want the same thing, and we're going to fight for our marriage, not against each other.
And communication's much bigger than just even in arguments and stuff like that. It's even important, clearly it matters to you. I come home from the end of a long day of work or something like that. You want to know everything. You ask lots of questions about what happened to his. Why are y'all doing this? What's going on there? And I've learned it just matters to you that I talk to you about daily stuff too. You want me to talk to you and tell you the things that I think and that I fear, or that I worry about, or that I'm excited about, or just be in the loop. It matters to you, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
There's so many different ways I could go with this next part. So men, generally speaking, I'm very stereotypical here. Men, generally speaking, want what matters to them is respect and physical intimacy. And for you, I think it matters to you that you feel seen, right? That you feel appreciated, encouraged, and served, right? So we talk, one of the headings we typically talk about this stuff under when we do these retreats and stuff is nagging and encouraging. Talk about those for just a few moments.
Yeah. So I think early on in our marriage, I was thinking I was being encouraging or reminding, but it really came across as nagging. And in Proverbs...
Can you take the trash out? Yeah, baby, I'll do it.
That's right.
5 minutes later, hey, can you take the trash out? Yeah. And that's how it came off at the beginning, right?
That's right. And I would get so frustrated because I had asked you to do it. You said you were going to do it.
Right.
But then I learned, hey, baby, will you take the trash out at the next commercial?
And I've learned to just simply say, when you say, ask me to do something, well, let me come back to that. I shouldn't need to be asked. There's a thing to say to the men. But when you ask, just communicate, yes, I will. Can I do it in 3 minutes?
Right.
When this possession from the saints is over and they go to commercial. And you typically will say, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's about expectations. And so I think it's important for wives. There's so many proverbs about, it's better to not have a nagging wife than to have somebody who lives in the corner of a roof. I'm like, I don't want to make you to the corner of a roof.
Right.
So I think it's important as women to know when that line is, not to be the Holy Spirit for your husband and not to be a nag who's like a dripping faucet or this person that just drives your husband crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's important that our words don't come across as disrespectful or nagging in any way. And so I think, in 25 years, one thing that we've learned is just I can ask a question and then I trust the Holy Spirit with that.
Right. And let me say specifically to the fellas in response to that. I mean, yes, that's very helpful for it to come off the right way and to respect whatever else I might be doing in that moment that I need to give my attention to. But it is my place. I've learned and see now, the older I get, is always my place. But I just, when I was young and kind of dumb, I didn't see it. And I was kind of, we'd get tense with each other over this. What matters to you a lot, and fellas, this is what I'd say to y'all, is that, man, pay attention to your wife. If she seems stressed, just kind of look around at what's going on. And if everything is falling on her logistically to get done, the dishes got to get cleaned, food's got to get cooked, trash needs to be taken out. Those things are stressing her out. You shouldn't need to ask me. I need to just be able to pay attention to you, because what matters to you is that you feel seen by me. Pay attention to you. And when I'm seeing all that you're trying to carry in this moment and I'm sitting over there relaxing and chilling, well, that's a problem, right? I need to get up. I need to see. I should just see this trash needs to be taken out. And before you even ask me, just go do it. Right. Or have one of the boys do it or one of the girls do it or something like that. But just helping address, and that's one of the ways I show that that I love you. And so that's a thing we need to do as well. So
That's right. That's right.
Well, once again, there's plenty more we could talk about, but I appreciate you, love you, and kind of fun to do this with you on the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
We'll see y'all next time.